Welcome to the Lowdown. I'm your host, Dob Low, and thank God we're back, baby. Thank God we're back on a big Willie good Wednesday morning. Guys, we got a couple of cool things to talk about, and I've got nothing but good stuff to talk about this morning. Man, it just kind of came to me all very naturally. It did not feel like I was having to pull any of this. You know, there was already slack. So let's get into it, guys. Let's start out right here. Ozzy Osbourne passed away. Man, I made a Facebook post yesterday. I said, can you imagine turning on your radio in 1970? 6 years after Beatlemania. 6 years after the Beatles came to America, you turn on your radio and you hear Ozzy Osbourne's voice with Black Sabbath for the first time. Can you imagine? My Lord. That guy was a real pioneer. In probably every fashion of the word. The Prince of Darkness. You know, he really changed music forever. He created a genre of music. I did see a quote yesterday, and he was talking that they never meant to make metal. They were just making the music they liked, and it became what is metal music. You know, they created a genre. Really incredible. I think when we're talking about going back to 1970, I wanted to put out there, 6 years after the Beatles, or I know it was 6 years after the Beatles. I don't know how long Elvis had been out. Let's say it was 15 years after Elvis. But guys, that's, the world wasn't ready for Sabbath right there, We had some rock and roll, no doubt about it, in this country, but nothing to that scale, nothing like that yet. That had to really be something incredible. I'm sure here in the Bible Belt, people thought that the devil was reincarnate and was coming. Because that had to have been a culture shock. While we're talking about that, when I had my big surgery, I'm laying in the bed, and the surgeon who I'd already met with, that we had come up with the plan for, he come over to talk to me, and he's like, hey, man, what kind of music would you want in the surgery room while we're doing this? As they putting you to sleep, and the whole time we're doing the surgery, we'll keep it on. That way, if you wake up, you'll have something that you know going on in the background. And I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, Sabbath. Throw on some early Sabbath. And he kind of looked at me, he shook his head, and he gave me a fist bump. And I was like, okay. Ozzy has transcended social norms. It doesn't matter if you're a truck driver, a surgeon, a doctor, a lawyer. Everybody likes Sabbath and Ozzy. So, man, we lost a really important person yesterday. So rest in peace, Ozzy. Let's go on. Yesterday, guys, I was working on my porch again. I tell you, a regular guy could have had this done 2 weeks ago, but I go out there and do a little bit at a time. Slow and steady wins the race. That's what I keep telling myself. My wife made the joke the other day. I'd been out there working on it for maybe 3 or 4 hours. I come in and she said, well, did you get 6 more boards on? Yep, about right. 6 more boards. And you know what? Maybe it is 6 more boards, but I'm going to do them 6 more boards every day till it's done, and that counts for something, guys. And I think maybe that's what I'm always trying to push out to you guys, is you don't have to do the impossible. I feel like everybody's trying to do everything overnight, and it's all got to be instant and easy and all those things, and it's just a strange way of looking at life. Gratification doesn't have to be instant. And in fact, I think a lot of times it's better if it's delayed. Right? If you've earned it over a course of time, it feels stronger when it's done. And so today, guys, I'm going to go right back out there and I'm going to go chip away at that old block. I'm going to keep putting some boards up on the porch. And eventually it's going to be done. It's like the old tortoise and the hare situation. It really is. While I'm talking about that, I wanted to talk about a speed square. It's the one tool, I think they cost like $10, that most regular people in their house don't have, that they should have. And it's the one tool that I find most people aren't aware of what all it does. And it's really the annoyance of that to me is I took all these carpentry classes in high school, and they had me in there on a drill press and a wood lathe and all these things. Guys, I've never been around any of those things in my adult life. And instead of teaching me about the speed square, instead of teaching me about all the different ways you can pull a nail out, it was like, I don't know. In true public education fashion, we spend a lot of time learning things that we'll just never use in real life. And so I want to talk about a speed square and all the different things you could be using it for, because, I've spent a lot of time on job sites. I've built a few houses, a few garages, laid some concrete, stuff like that. And I've learned some tricks. So the first thing about the speed square is it's the world's greatest cutting tool. It's dummy proof. So you measure at your board to 20 inches and you mark it. You turn your speed square around, get that flat edge against the flat edge. You've got a perfect 90-degree angle. It's going to be perfectly straight. So you mark it. Now, if you just leave your speed square there and you take it down a couple inches, and you throw your saw up on the board, your saw has that little metal guide that protects your fingers and stuff from the blade. Well, it is a perfectly straight line. And you can hold your speed square flat edge to flat edge on your board or on your cutting surface, and that straight edge will line up perfectly with the straight edge of your saw, and you can use that as a saw guide, and you'll never cut a crooked line again. You can do it in 2 seconds. It's dummy proof. It works really good as a level if you are in a spot where you maybe can't get a level to, where you don't have a torpedo level, something like that. Or if it's something like what I'm doing out there, putting on porch boards, they don't have to be perfect. But what I need them to be is good enough. So I take my little speed square, I throw it onto the band board. When I go put my board on, I put my first screw in. Then I just use that on the edge of the board, move the board to the flat edge. If it's all lining up top to bottom on that speed square, I'm level. Guys, that's just a couple things it can do. It can tell you your roof pitch, all kinds of stuff. The more you want to learn about it, the better. But I just wanted to get a couple of ideas out there on it. We got mostly men who listen to the show. And look, if you're a woman, it's not going to hurt you to know some of those things. I just wanted to put that out there. All right. Now let's get on to some of our news today. All right. Krispy Kreme donuts. A dozen of them now cost $20. Adios, Krispy Kreme. You won't be seeing me. $20 for some donuts. Guys, you can go buy a can of biscuits, poke a hole in the center of them, deep fry them, put them in a Ziploc bag with some sugar and shake them up. And for about $1.25, you can have some pretty good donuts. I will not be buying any $20 Krispy Kremes. If you do, good for you. Not for me. While we're talking about sugary treats, I wanted to talk about how we've been seeing these headlines that cane sugar is coming back to Coca-Cola. I think Trump and RFK kind of pushed that deal into motion. RFK's pushed out, less artificial dyes in all foods and stuff like that. But sugar is a real problem. for Americans at least. So going back to the natural form of sugar, for one, I do think will help. And I think it's a push in the right direction, right? We don't have to act like we can never have sugar again, but let's make it a natural version, something that comes from the earth that wasn't concocted in a lab, and see how that works. Guys, I will tell you this, though. I'm not saying that sugar causes cancer, but when I went to get my first PET scans and all of that, they showed me the direct correlation in real time from sugar to cancer. And I'm going to explain that. So they injected me with a dye that was filled with sugar. And I got to go back afterwards and watch the PET scan in real time. And you could watch the dye. The dye is just there so they can see it through the imaging. The sugar is what's moving. And as soon as that sugar got in my bloodstream, it went directly to where my cancer was and activated. It doesn't cause cancer necessarily, but it's super unhealthy, guys. When you get to a spot like I am, you have cancer, you're dealing with that, you really must avoid it at all cost. It is, it's terrible. So there's a little bit on sugar. Good move on the government, good move on Trump, good move on RFK to bring cane sugar back. I actually really support that. I think it'll taste better too. Our big piece of news today. Apparently, I've not got to hear Japan's response about this. I tried to find it this morning because as I was falling asleep last night, this headline came out. But Trump signed a deal with Japan, and Japan is going to invest $550 billion worth of money into America, into business in America, into trade in America. Maybe we'll see a little economical boom of work. It's hard for me to even fathom $550 billion. So I don't know exactly where all that's going to go. I was hoping I could get more info this morning, but nothing yet. So maybe I'm going to talk about that again tomorrow, right? Because it's good to talk about wins. Sometimes I feel like I get on here and I've only got bad news. So I'll try to find out. You guys should look into that too, though. That's a pretty big move. And it's good to see. Yeah. Guys, I'm going to be hard on Trump on this show. I'm going to be hard on all politicians. But we have to accept the fact that they do get victory sometimes. So I want to award that victory by talking about it. And I would like to talk about it again as I get more information. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to try to talk more in depth about this. But Trump deal with Japan, $550 billion coming to the U.S. economy. That's a win, guys. All right, that's the end of our Willie Good Wednesday. Song of the day. Well, it has to be Ozzy, guys. We're going to go with my favorite Sabbath song, Hole in the Sky. I hope you guys have a Willie Good Wednesday. Goodbye.